Welcome to the Eurostep Brit podcast.
Under 10 seconds. Game's going to be decided here. Harrell spots up. Doesn't go. Put back is good! Roberto Gallina with a second chance opportunity. Aris Lee. Per Gunther for three. Got it. Per Gunther, 3 punta. Holland. Pull up three, no good. Orcus, the offensive board. He turns around and shoots. Got it at the buzzer!
Hello and welcome back. It's episode 30 of the Eurostep Brit podcast. We'll call this one Made in Yorkshire. To a recent British basketball fan, you'd probably know Jason Swaine as a commentator, whether it's in the SLB, BCL or Eurocup that you've heard him. But for those who followed the sport for a long time, Jason is someone who carved out a successful playing career in both the British Basketball League and National League, as well as representing his country on a number of occasions. In this episode, Jason looks back on his career from winning titles in the BBL, dominating in the NBL, and to the joy of playing alongside his son. Without further ado, let's get to it. Jason, welcome to the podcast. Before we get going, I just want to read you a quote and then see what you remember of this. This is a quote about yourself from a good few years ago. On first viewing, an outsider would not guess that Jason Swaine was a basketball player. Well under the 7-foot mark, one associates with the sport, and with a muscular build, he looks to the untrained eye more like a footballer. His job is to provide the taller men with the shooting opportunities. Does that ring a bell?
It does. That's probably why I was left open so much, right? It's probably why people thought, oh, we'll just leave him, which, it does ring a bell. That, I think, is because when I grew up, I was a keen footballer, and then I transitioned into basketball at age 14. So, yeah, I can see that, and I can see why I don't fit the stereotype in more ways than one, not just looks, Niall.
I just thought it was hilarious because obviously, when I do a podcast, I've got to do some research. It was a thing called Peak Performance on ITV. I think it looks like the velodrome in the background that you were filmed at.
I think it was when my early days, my first season at Manchester, I had an excellent fitness coach called Simon Revington, and we spent days in the gym and that summer. And I think the channel came in, and I forgot what channel it was. Came in to do ITV came in to do a documentary on myself, and it was very good. It was the norm back then that would happen. So it was a very good production. But yeah, I'm glad out of all the things you could have picked, you picked something like that, Niall.
I think it's actually on Simon's own YouTube channel. I'm sure it was. But it's just one of those things. You Google the name. And what comes up first, I've not seen that before. I'm having to watch all that. So, Jason, then, you could have gone into football. Is that true then?
Well, that's a long shot because I ended up playing for Huddersfield Town Boys twice. I was never going to be a professional footballer. I wasn't that good. But I was very good. I was always top scorer on my team that I played on as a kid. I loved it. I'm obviously followed the champions, which are Liverpool, Niall. I don't know about your persuasion, but so I love football, but then getting into basketball, I just fell in love with the game at age 14. So that was the transition. But I think it's a far stretch to say I would have been a professional footballer. I don't think I would have quite made that.
I remember also, Jimmy, I was watching an old interview you did with Sam Neater a good few years ago now. And it's a case of that you got opportunity to go and watch some basketball. And is it true that you didn't want to go and watch it?
Yeah, it was. We had some friends over from Luxembourg, some family friends, and they came over. And I was actually playing football on the street. And my dad came out and said, "Look, it's raining, blah blah blah. We've looked in the local paper back then. You looked in, and we're gonna go see a basketball game at Northbridge Leisure Centre in Halifax." And that was when the Calderdale Explorers, not the Calderdale Explorers you see now, the real Calderdale Explorers back then. And that was then. And I just went to the game thinking, I don't really want to go to that. Went to it and then sat down and thought, wow, I was on the edge of my seat. And from then on, I was just hooked.
Do you remember who would have been playing for Calderwood back then?
Yeah, the legendary Cat Johnson, who's not with us anymore,
Yeah,
but
rest in peace. Yeah.
he was playing at the point guard spot. Dave Harris, who we know through Leicester Riders, but he was at Calderdale. Jimmy Brandon, who I played for
Yeah.
in years to come, and one of my favorite one of my favorite players and coaches, Curtis Xavier, who is one of the reasons I became the player that I was in the end. So yeah, he was playing, and that was the core of the team, really.
So how did you get into basketball from that point?
Well, the local leisure centre that they played at, and bearing in mind when I say local leisure centre, there was 1,000 people watching in those days. Courtside, chairs around the back, health and safety out the window, people on the balcony.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, so it was packed, and they had summer activities which you could go down and play any sport you wanted. So I went down to those summer activities in the holidays, whether it be football, basketball, and whenever I got a chance to do the basketball part of it, I did, and I just played, and played. And it happened to be that the Explorers trained at different times, so I got to watch them a little bit, and they were my idols. And Curtis Xavier one year walked through the sports hall and said he's pretty good, he's pretty smart, and it's weird because I wasn't doing anything really good. He just saw that I was a smart player. And being 15, 14 at the time, who would do that now? Who would walk through a gym and pick someone who doesn't really look like he's going to be a great basketball player and think I can make a good basketball player out of him? So that's how it all started for me, really.
And how did you go from there to becoming a professional?
So the next step for me, from in that ancillary hall, it was called, in Northbridge, and he saw me and he said, "Oh yeah, you look like you know what you're doing." And that end season, Calderdale Explorers folded, but Curtis Xavier stuck around and brought them back into the National League Division 3, which was in this term's money, National League Division 2. It is men.
Yeah.
And he started up a team, coaching, because he said, I want to get into coaching. So then it progressed within the next 2 years into him coaching a team called the Explorers at a lower level. So then he said, well, I want these guys. And he said, would you come to training? And I said, of course I would come to training. So I'm thrown in at the deep end with men, never played junior basketball. And I was taught not only how to play the game, but how to be a man, really, at 15 years old in terms of sport. So that was my progression. Then following that, I had 3 years playing at Calderdale. Then we ended up folding, and then Curtis became the coach at Doncaster in Division 1, which is now...
Would that have been the Tony Holly time?
Yes, that's the
Because Tony was a guest
time.
early in the series. I remember him playing there.
Yeah, I played with Tony Holly and Wendell Francis that year, and Stuart Solomon, who's no longer with us. So Stuart Solomon and me ended up being the starting backcourt in that team. And I'm 18 years old, playing Division 1. It helped that Tony Holly was on the team, don't get me wrong, because he could carry us at times. Wendell Francis, Mark Harvey, Chris Meller, who's now coaching at Yorkshire Dragons. And we ended up winning that league, winning the cup, lost out to Russ Saunders as Crystal Palace. Ronaldo Lawrence was on that team as well.
That was a baller, yeah.
Yeah, Roger Hosanna. They had some, I think, was it Martin Clark may have even been on that team. They were a very, no, Tim Lewis it was that was on the team. So they had a very good team, and but we were the champions, and then we were the cup champions too. So at 18 years old, it just went from there to there for me, and then on to Sheffield after that.
After Doncaster won the National League, is that the year you moved up into the BBL?
Yeah, it was, and I stuck around with Anthony Joseph and Justin Jones and co. But the coach then was Mark Harvey, and he didn't really want to play me at all. So it was, I went from, starting and playing the lion's share of the minutes in winning Division 1 at 18 to not hardly playing, to maybe playing 4 or 5 minutes a game. And the team wasn't gelling as they should. So it was definitely a time for me to go somewhere else. So I went back down to Division 1 for one game to play at Bury Lobos with a guy called Richard Moses and Junior Alexander. Chris McCormack was on that team. And then Sheffield, after one game, came in for me and said, we want you to play for the Sharks. And that was the first year of the Sharks. So yeah, that was my first proper, kind of paid gig.
Because you're, I was doing the research, and your season at Doncaster brought back some bad memories, because I was a Thames Valley fan back in the day, and that's the year they won the league, and then Derby beat them in the playoffs. The 8th seed beating the first. That was not good memories.
No, but Thames Valley were a great team, a really good team.
Yeah, that's why I had Tony on early in the series, because it's just great to reminisce on those years. So, getting back to yourself, you go to Sheffield. How did the chance come about then to play for Jim Brandon?
Well, Jim Brandon recognised me from when I used to be at Calderdale, because he played for Calderdale. Mm-hmm. He recognised me as a kid, and he remembered me. Obviously, he's still in touch with Curtis, so he made that call. What's he like? What's he this? And then it was history. And then I'd go and play at Sheffield. I played very little in my first year as a 19-year-old, playing behind Chris Finch, who was the 2 guard. And then Todd Cawthorne, Roger Huggins, Sean Mackay was the point guard. And we had a really well-balanced team. I went on to win the league. And I was kind of a bench player. Some games I wouldn't even suit up. Next games I would play, and I could play 10 minutes a game. I could not play at all. It was one of those kind of seasons, but we were all in it together, and it was a season after really that really started my, everyone knowing who I was as a basketball player.
What was it like for you that first season then? Because obviously you've gone from Doncaster, missed out on the playoffs. You've gone to Sheffield, they've won the league, and as you said, you haven't played a great deal. So there's sort of like mixed emotions in a way for you, because like I said, team's very successful, but you're not really getting a chance to step on the floor too much.
But you have to remember, I'm not a kid from, a big time program in junior basketball. I'm not told I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. I earned everything I ever had. I'm from Halifax, where people will probably watching this clip might even say, where? I'm from Halifax at Northbridge Leisure Centre. Like we said earlier, you wouldn't have picked me out to be someone who would be good at basketball. But Curtis did, and then I developed. And so for me, I was so glad just to be on that team, to be playing for Sheffield Sharks in, the British Basketball League. And, it was on TV, and it was Wembley, and we were in arenas, and it was just a privilege to actually be part of that team in that first season.
You mentioned, obviously, Chris Finch was a teammate of yours. Of course, we all know him now as a head coach, Minnesota Timberwolves. He has a really good coaching career. But I just thought I'd ask, what was he like as a teammate, as a player?
He was a great
won't know him, will they?
Yeah, he was a great teammate. So one of the reasons that he was a really smart player, and he could handle the point if needed. He could shoot the ball really well. He just get it done. Defensively, he was very good, and he was a good guy. I mean, on European trips, spending time with, him and Todd Cawthorne, and we had so much fun. It was just a great time, and one of the reasons that I did get my break in the season after that is he had glandular fever, did Chris. So at the beginning of the season, he got glandular fever, which, is quite debilitating. Yeah. So he had that, and which means that I then moved up in the pecking order. And because I worked so hard on my shot over the season, it paid dividends. But that was kind of one of the reasons. And he was, to his credit, he was never funny with me about that. Yes, he was still going to play. If he hadn't have been in that position, he would have continued to play in front of me. But it did enable me just to get in. And then when he got healthy, we were all back in the mix then. But he was a good teammate. He was a very good. I haven't stayed in touch with him after, so I'm not one of those guys that's going to say, "Oh yeah, he's my best friend." He's not, but he was a really good teammate at the time. Enjoyed playing with him.
We have to take you on. You mentioned about your breakthrough the year after. Of course, that was a huge year for Sheffield, playing European powerhouses. Um, you played in the McDonald's Open in East London. You played Real Madrid, and you played Maccabi Tel Aviv. You know,
Yeah.
two real big teams. What was that experience like for you? Like I said, you've played in Calderdale, you've played in the BBL. Now you're going up against big European teams. What was that like for you?
Well, I mean, we as human beings, we have a tendency to take things a little bit for granted. I didn't take a lot, but you do a little bit. So looking back now, you think, wow, I played in the McDonald's Open. And as an English player at that time, I did play. So I would play 20 minutes, and you were, like you said, you're playing against Real Madrid, you're playing against Joe Arilakis, you're playing against Michael Smith. Joe Antunes at the time was the point guard. And then Maccabi, they had Tom Chambers, who was their MVP when he was at Seattle in the NBA. And it was just such a buzz. And we got lucky because with it being in London, we got a pass into the McDonald's Open with the other 5 teams that were in there. But in terms of European competition, I think it may have been either EuroLeague or Eurocup qualifying equivalent what it is now. So when we played Real Madrid and then we played other teams, we were up 17 in Madrid at half time and ended up losing by 3.
Yeah, that was
I
the
think it was
EuroLeague
17.
qualifiers. Yeah,
Yeah, EuroLeague
EuroLeague qualifiers
qualifiers. Yeah,
because you beat some team from Luxembourg. Oh gosh, I can probably pronounce it. Helzem, I think it was. So you've gone from playing a
right.
little team from Luxembourg to suddenly
Yeah,
playing Real Madrid. Now, for the context of listeners, I got to mention this. Real Madrid were coming off winning their 8th EuroLeague title at the time. They'd beaten
yeah,
Olympiacos in the final the year before, and you were going up against them. You lost by 10 at home, and then, like you said, you lost by 3 on the road, but you were beating them. So on aggregate, you were actually winning. What are your
yeah.
memories of playing against Madrid in that European qualifiers? Or, sorry, EuroLeague
Well,
qualifiers.
the best thing about it is I wasn't scared. I'd come in and play, and I think I was 20 at the time. I would come in and play, shoot the ball. I'd probably go 3 for 3, then sit down, and I'd play 12 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
But to be on the court and contribute in that environment was amazing. But I do remember being in the locker room at halftime in Madrid, thinking we've got these guys. We can beat these guys. Roger Huggins was killing them. Todd Cawthorne was doing what he does. And we were playing so well. And the press were all over him at halftime. This is going to be a big upset. This is going to be this. And we're thinking, we've got these guys. We go out in the second half. I don't think we have one foul called in our favor in the whole second half. And we end up losing by 3. And it probably is one of the best moments of my playing time, but also one of the biggest regrets that we just didn't win, because that would have been like, wow, we beat Madrid in Madrid when they were the EuroLeague champions.
Yeah, that would have been one all times. One of those days we wish like you had what we have streaming, everything take for granted now back then, and people be able to watch it because that would have been such a huge story for basketball. Do you remember what the atmosphere was like in Madrid?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, the buzz around the city. We got to go to the football ground. That everything's intertwined there: football, basketball. As you go into the arena, it's back then there were flares going. It was really good. I mean, we had a good pre-season as well that year too. So we went to Yugoslavia. It was back then before it was divided. And we had some tough competition in hostile environments as well. So Real Madrid it was great. It was absolutely fantastic.
I remember you went on, because in those days, if you lost in that round, you dropped down into another competition. Was it supporter? No, European Cup. Yeah, it's called the European Cup, but it was a lower level competition. And you went out to Ostend, the Belgian side that
Yes.
year. Do you remember anything about that?
I mean, you remember the format more than me. I just remember the games. I remember playing Ostend at home. I think we lost by around 10. And then going to Ostend, I think we were quite well beaten, and that was the end for us. But yeah, I do remember playing Ostend. It was where Roger Huggins moved to after that, I think.
Didn't Finchy go there later on, or was that? No, he went to a different Belgian club, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I knew he went to a Belgium club to coach to start off with after Sheffield. But yeah, it was just Niall. It's just an experience that, like I keep saying, I was never the best player on the team, and I find it quite uncomfortable when people refer to me as a great. I wasn't a great, but I played in a great era, and I played really well and got the most out of what I could get. So I'm exceptionally proud of my short career, would it be? But yeah, they were fun times, put it that way.
Well, in that case, I promise when I record the intro, I won't call you great. Is that okay?
Call me whatever you want. That's your prerogative, huh?
No, there's a filter. But obviously, it's one of those things you almost like say you almost took it for granted back then, because that was a sort of high point. And with British teams in Europe for many, many years after that, some would try the odd bit and always fail, what have you. But it was just one of those things you got to play against. I mean, Ostend, obviously, they've had a European reputation, but to play against a team like Real Madrid, who were at that point about to go on a slight decline for a few years, but they were still the European champions, is something special.
Yeah, it is. It's extremely special, and it's moments that you can never take away. Unfortunately, when you look back at like stats in like the McDonald's Open when we played those guys and Maccabi, and I think I was in the Hall of Fame behind Tony Kukoc, and between Tony Kukoc and Robert Horry in 3-point shots made in a tournament. I think I made 4 or 5, but you cannot find it now. So you can't go back, and that's the problem, and look at the stats and all that. So it's not as well documented, but fond memories.
This is where I have to give a shout out to Daniel Routledge, because obviously since the fold in the BBL, those stats went into the ether. But we're lucky to have a custodian like Dan, who's kept the information. When I look back, I think as it currently stands, BBL era, you were 18th full time as a 3-point shooter. That was a lot of your game, wasn't it? Was the 3-point shot in an era where it wasn't, as dominant as part of the game as it is now.
Yeah, in an era where you had more. I mean, first, before we get going, Daniel Routledge, I spoke to him the other day about what he put me forward and what questions he'd given you, Niall. I thought he might have stitched me up knowing his humour. But yeah, what a voice we've had in the English game since Mike Shaft, and now Daniel Routledge we've had for years, and what a good guy he is.
They'll be wheeling him into his commentary booth in 20 years' time still.
They will. Well, hopefully so, and rightfully so. He is the voice that we've had for years, and
absolutely.
I don't know many players that don't respond well to him. But yeah, being 18th all time, I didn't know that actually, which is really nice to hear. And 3-point shooting was my thing. Position basketball was the game. You would throw it into the block, the guy would go to work. Now everyone, we see Victor Wembanyama playing at the perimeter, sometimes handling the basketball full court. So I'm not sure whether I would have. People say to me the game would have suited you so much now. There'd be floor spacing, you'd have open chances to drive, you'd have open chances to shoot. But then again, would I be as valuable? Because I was a specialist in my own right. I just did a couple of things outstandingly. I shot the ball better than anyone else at times, and I played really, really hard. So those two things I did, I'm not sure what would translate. Would it be better? Would it be worse? I don't know. I just think guys who've been successful at anything would find a way in any environment.
You spent 3 seasons with the Sharks, and then that came to an end. How did it come about, your time at the Sharks come to an end?
It wasn't great, if I'm being honest. At the end of playing at Sheffield, it wasn't great. I understand that business is business and professional teams, and they have to prioritize. But I played there 3 years. I turned down quite a few chances. Like London Towers were interested, at the time. The Leopards were interested. They were teams that I could have probably gone to, and I hung around for Sheffield because I was in love with the club, and that kind of wasn't reciprocated towards the end. A long story short, and let bygones be bygones, but it was a tough time for me. I then ended up playing for Mike Burton at Chester briefly. Go ahead, Niall.
No, I was just about to say, it's one of those things. I was doing research. It's like, again, with Dan's notes, it's like, I completely forgot you played for Chester. It's like, I always remember you that Doncaster breakthrough, obviously the Sharks' glory years, and then the Giants. I do not remember that time at Chester at all. It's just like a blank for me.
Yeah, well, it was one of probably the best progressive times in my career. So I ended up going from Sheffield and being kind of left without many options. I'm not saying Chester was not a good option, because they were very good. So me playing for them, I was more than happy. And I started off the sixth man on the team, coming off the bench. Then we had a couple of injuries, and before you know it, I'm playing point. So I'm playing point guard, which I'd never had a chance to do, and out of my comfort zone. So I would say until November time, I was at Chester. So 2.5 months I played for Chester at the beginning of the season. I was given the basketball. You're going to be playing point. I was playing 40 minutes, 35. I was thrown in at the deep end, which was great for me. So yeah, I did that, and then ended up, moving to Manchester mid-season, and to once again play for Jimmy Brandon. And by then, I had the arrogance to handle the ball a little bit more, to kind of go off a dribble. I considered myself as, when I came in the game, I was going to do this. I was going to score. I was really a veteran then at 24.
Yeah. How did that come about then, that mid-season move? Did Jimmy approach your team? How did it work back then?
Well, playing at Chester was a gamble in terms of money. It was a gamble in terms of playing there. I always knew I was going to get to play a lot. What I didn't know was it going to work out money-wise? And then, of course, the Giants, it was either, go somewhere else from Chester, look for another club, and go somewhere else. There were other clubs interested at the time, or it was go to Manchester, and Manchester was the best option. I was able to, I was living in Chester. It wasn't far to Manchester from there. My wife at the time had a job in Manchester, so it all worked out for us, really. So moving to Manchester was just the natural thing, and they were probably the biggest club in British basketball, not in terms of winning, but at the time in terms of an established club, and money-wise, they were huge. So it was a good move for me.
And a nice venue to play in as well.
Yeah, playing at the 9X Arena. I mean, we used to joke, I played at the 9X for Manchester, and when I was at Chester, it was the 1X. It was rather smaller. But yeah, the 9X was great, which is the AO Arena now, MEN Arena it was. And I mean, we did fill it at times, Mostly there was about 3,000 or 4,000 watching, but some games we get close to the 15,000 mark.
I do remember coming up for one Tigers game. I think it's a rearranged game, so it might have been midweek or something. And I'd been there for some big games. And then it came up for that game, and it was like an echo chamber in there, because obviously when you only got like 3,000 in there in a huge arena like that, you can hear every single shout that's going around there.
Well, that's what's good about like Manchester basketball now. About the arena they have, like Leicester's place, Newcastle's place is always jumping. The Cannon at Sheffield, they're purpose-built arenas, and they're probably the right size for the fan base we have. And you all want to go into an arena that's packed and it's loud. And I think they have it right in terms of arenas now and places that they play.
Now, it's a big moment in BBL history, but I have to talk about the 98-99 season with the Giants. Obviously, you're playing for Nick Nurse. Very briefly, obviously, we talked about Chris Finch. What was it like playing for Nick Nurse?
It was great, and I have stayed in touch briefly with him, so I've been able to go and see him coaching in the States. But you knew he was. You knew he was going to be good. He made me, as a relatively younger player at the time, 24, I think I was. He made me feel like a grown man and be coached in that way for probably the first time, like it was a professional way. But he cared. He cared about what you were doing off court. He had conversations with you, not just around basketball. And he led by example. And any leader for me needs to lead by example. If you're a guy that says, oh, you need to do this and you're not doing it yourself, I'm not interested. You know, he's a guy that was in early. He scouted games and he was an absolute, probably still is, a basketball junkie. And I'm so proud and pleased that he's doing what he is. He is and was an absolutely great coach.
I have to ask you now about a certain event on Good Friday, 1999. Obviously, if you're on the losing team, it's different, but it was one of the moments of BBL history. You've got a title decider at the arena in Manchester. It's the Giants, it's the Sharks, and the guy. I think you said once in interviews, the guy that replaced the Sharks, Terrell Myers, hit that winning basket. I heard the sigh there, Jason. But just what are your memories of that afternoon at the arena in '99?
I kind of blanked them out, but thanks for bringing it up, Niall. But yeah, no.
I know, good counselor.
I mean, that was one of the games that the arena was packed, like absolutely packed. And it is funny because when I did leave Sheffield, that was the best decision they made because I was going to be kept on at one point, and then they went in a different direction down the line, which wasn't great for me. But the guy coming in was Terrell Myers. So, I mean, how good, when you talk about great, he was great. You know, he was so good. But yeah, I mean, looking back, I'm still well in touch with people from Sheffield. You know, Todd Cawthorne is a really good friend. You know, Richard Windle, who I message every now and then, Adrian Anderson, you know, the guys that were at Sheffield. And if it was another team that was going to beat me, I was happy for those guys down the line. But yeah, I mean, just what a time to play. But Terrell Myers, yeah, big time shot in a huge game. And yeah, you see it'll never leave us. You know, it was a fantastic game.
Yeah, I just remember because even though I was Tigers fan, I remember going up to watch that game because it was just something special. It was a nightmare getting there, but it was amazing. It was an absolutely amazing game. But of course, you were on the losing side that day. It's one of those things. But you know, somebody has to lose a game. It's one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the sad thing is, I was one of those players at that point for Sheffield when we had Tony Dorsey, Ronnie Baker, John White. I would play 25, 30 minutes, but then I would play 7 or 8 minutes. And that was one of the games I played 7 or 8 minutes. So I didn't get much opportunity to do a lot in that game. So it was frustrating in a lot of ways. But yeah, definitely frustrating. We were on the losing team for what would have been, you know, league title.
Of course, you had success that season with the Giants winning the Uniball Trophy.
Yeah, we had. I believe it was the first trophy that Manchester had ever achieved, and you know that was a great night in itself, winning that trophy and beating Derby. Derby were undermanned at that point. They'd had some guys thrown out from a previous game, so they were undermanned, but we still took care of business. Got to the final, beat Sheffield in the semi-finals, then went on and beat Derby. But I mean, it was more. My son was born the day after. So Gail was in labour in the crowd. You know, my dad drove all the way back to Huddersfield. The game was in Birmingham. And no offence to people from Birmingham, but I'm glad I had a Yorkshire kid. He wasn't born in Birmingham. So yeah, that was the biggest memory of that game is the bigger picture, my son Isley was born, which was, I mean, if anyone is a parent, they know that trumps everything. So, yeah.
Yeah, you've got two kids, both done their own sporting achievements, both doing well in life that you're very proud of.
Yeah, I mean, more proud of them as people than sportsmen. I mean, Isley, I ended up playing with him, which in Bradford, which we'll probably get to down the line. But he attended a school in America called Findlay, University of Findlay, and had a really good career, got a master's, ups and downs, tore his ACL, came back, started his final year, and my daughter, who played netball, was one of the really good prospects as a junior. Didn't work out for her in terms of going to the next level, but she's currently in Australia. Isley is currently living in LA. So, they're just so proud, and both me and Gil, are really proud of those two kids. They're just exceptional, human beings, and definitely are, and my as well, greatest achievement in life for those two kids.
Yeah, I have to give out a shout out to Dan for that question, because he was up in Cheshire getting ready for his game the other day, and you were on the commentary in Manchester. You mentioned it, and Dan said, "Oh, you've got to ask him about that. You've got to ask him about that." So I got the Dan question in. As you can see, you weren't stitched up at all. It was a
No, I
genuinely
wasn't. That's
nice
very
question.
nice of him. I think we get to an age where those things mean everything, right? We look back and think, "Oh, yeah, that happened and this happened," and it is great to reminisce. But yeah, really proud time for sure.
And then that year, Manchester, that signaled the end of your BBL playing days, but you still carried on. Was that a decision you wanted to make based on the fact your son had just been born, or other factors come into play there?
Yeah, my son being born was a huge thing because up until then, I hadn't gone to university out of school. I was solely concentrated on basketball. There was a huge chance of professional, basketball being a viable option back then to last a long time. So that was the route I went down. But when you have someone who is going to depend on you for the rest of their lives, my son being born, it made me think, okay, well, what am I going to do? And I'd always, like, through teams I played on at Sheffield, Manchester, with Adidas, when I played at Chester, I'd always worked in schools, and I absolutely loved, making kids, smile, enjoy what they're doing, and I took that seriously as a professional athlete. So the natural progression was for me to go back to university, see where my degree took me, and then from then on start to become a teacher, which I did. And now that is my number one profession, I would say, in life. So yeah, Isley really forced a kind of life check and some life decisions to happen. And how good was it that the Division 1 was still excellent at that point, and I got to go play at Teesside for Tony Hansen while I was doing that.
So what sort of age would you have been round about this point?
So when Isley was born, I was 25. So 25 years old. I was playing at Teesside Mohawks for Tony Hansen with Ralph Bucci and EJ Harrison.
Wow.
So we were kind of the big three, and I mean those were some really fun times playing basketball.
And obviously, stepping down the level, your minutes shot right up, did you? Would you say you were one of the key players?
Yeah, I was one of the key guys. I mean, it was any given night, take your pick. EJ would have 30, Ralph would have 30, or I would have 30. Ralph was the main guy on the team. He was exceptionally good and a great human being too. EJ was a Final Four winner with UConn. So he brought all that to the table, and then I considered, well, I'm one of the best players in this league, so bring it on, and I played like that. So it was for 4 years. I mean, if we go through the trophies on offer and what we won, it's unreal. And every other team, I'm sorry, guys, to offend people, but you were playing for second.
Yeah,
You were.
There's been like that in the National League, though, hasn't there? There's been those sort of teams that have dominated for a few years at a time, and it just happened to be your one. Was your game similar? 'Cause obviously, remember your 3-point shooting in the BBL. Was your game similar in the National League, or did you have to change it?
My default was always to be able to shoot the three, and I was still very good at it. But I also played the point a lot, and I could get to the rack and score as well doing that. So I had a very varied game. But I did at Manchester in my last year. Really, I could put the ball on the floor a lot more, and just as any person does in any line of work, you just develop. So at Teesside, I was just playing totally free, and really enjoying it. So yeah, the 4 years we're there, I do have to come to this now because it's something that I'm extremely proud of. The 4 years we're there, if you count the league, the cup, and the playoffs as the three pieces of silverware on offer, out of the 12 on offer in 4 years, we took 10 of those. So
you begrudge the other two, don't you?
3 seasons of those were clean sweeps. We won the league, the trophy, and the playoffs. But the other two, I think Plymouth 1 year when EJ wasn't with us. Plymouth 1 year won the league and the playoffs. Yeah. So, but I'm sorry, guys. Everyone was playing for second during that 4 years. I still stand by that.
I mean, you mentioned Plymouth. Any other teams that really stood out for you as rivals during that time?
Worthing were a big rival. So it was us, Plymouth, and Worthing that were always in the mix. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not going to upset Worthing fans here, but that was a great place to go play, but they never quite got there in terms of winning anything in that period. I mean, we go back to days of Colin Irish and Alan Cunningham, and wow, what an organisation that's been. But I always loved going to play at Worthing and Plymouth. I loved the feel they had, the fans they had in there. It was good. So yeah, those were the 3 teams mainly that were going at it.
And how did the Teesside era come to an end?
So it just came to an end with me having to travel back up and down the A1. I was having to. I ended up getting my teaching practice off and running in my last year of playing. So I did my degree the first 3 years of playing in Huddersfield. I lived in Huddersfield, so I was up and down the motorway 2 or 3 times a week. And then I ended up doing my teaching certificate and staying over 2 or 3 times a week. And I was away from home a lot. I didn't like it. I wanted to be back at home. And it was at that point that I said, right, from here on in, I'm going to play basketball for fun. I mean, it turned out a little bit different. I went to play for Huddersfield in Division 3 in the National League. And it was like, right, I'm playing twice a week training, and I'm playing the games at the weekend. I'm living at home. I got a job in Barnsley at the time, which was not far from my house. And that was me kind of starting to retire from the game.
And what was it like just going back to Teesside then? Were they accommodating the fact that you were training as well as, to be a teacher as well as playing?
Yeah. I would go down Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and then I would play games at the weekend. I worked out, well, if anyone knows me, my work ethic was insane. So I would work out before university every morning at the university facilities. And I just get it done somehow. And then, it was that's how it worked out.
So in a sense, would it be fair to say, even though you carried on playing to 41 after Teesside, that was sort of your retirement,
Yes.
As you said, it was just for fun.
I always hear people say, well, I had a career in basketball, and well, no, you played Division 3, and I still say it's only a career if you have a tax code. So like I played at Sheffield, Manchester, Chester, Teesside. That was my professional life. So I would say my professional career was from 20 to 28. So it was a short time. And then it became still serious, but not professional.
Yeah. And I don't want to skip ahead too far, but you later on, you got a chance to play National League with your son. When was this?
Yeah, I did. So the days I played at Huddersfield, he was, really young in his, early years. And then he got into the game around, I would say, well, really 7 years old, 8 years old. He played football too, played a number of different sports. And then he ended up playing at the Bradford Dragons. So what I was doing at the time is I was playing Division 3, and he ended up sitting on the bench. He was playing for the juniors, but sitting on the bench for the seniors.
Mm-hmm.
So being a supportive dad, I would go to his game on a Saturday night in Bradford. Then I would have to go to my game on a Sunday, wherever I was playing at the time. And I thought, I'm good enough to play still in Division 1. Why don't I just play while I'm here, and then I don't have to do that the other times? Because bearing in mind, we both put a lot into our daughter playing sport. So she had a netball going on as well. So there was all that to factor in. So I ended up just playing at Bradford for 4 years, which was great. But he ended up then progressing into the senior team. That was so special being able to share the court with him. And the first season, he didn't play much. But the second season, I was still playing around 30 minutes a game, and he was starting to play 15. Yeah. And then the last season we played together, you would play like 20 minutes, and I was playing like 25.
Yeah.
So it was something that I don't know if has been done on that level before, but
I'd say it's quite unique, isn't it? It's quite unique, isn't it? But do you remember the first time when he actually played? Obviously, because you've been training and stuff like that. But do you remember the first time when you were both on the floor together in a competitive game?
One of my fondest memories is that numbers mean a lot to professional athletes. And I always wore the number 8, and it's so special in my life. When I see number 8s, I always think. And the first game he played, I wore the number 8, and I said, right, this is the time to give to him now. So I gave him my shirt, and I said, I will never wear number 8 again. It'll never be something I wear. I'll wear any other number apart from number 8, and now it's yours. So I kind of passed that on to him. Nice. So that was kind of really cool. And then I moved to wearing 21, and then whatever number was free. But that was another kind of way of moving closer to stopping playing, if you get what I mean, mentally.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first time I took to the floor, it's funny because very rarely do you hear a teammate shout, "Dad!" as you're playing. So, we had that going on. And it was good because Chris Mellor was the coach at the time, and I grew up playing with Chris Mellor. And he was coaching Bradford, and he was so good with it because I didn't have to worry about Isley's basketball. Yeah, we'd have conversations on the way home. We'd have conversations off the court. But while we were on court playing, he was just a teammate. And he's the best teammate I've ever had for being my son. But he was just a teammate. But, what he's achieved in basketball as well through that, and me being able to play a part in that he's awesome. It was so good. I can't put it into words, Niall.
I have to ask you, some people love these sort of things. And any reason why you chose the number 8?
I played it when I played football. So I wore number 8 playing football. I was, I wore number 9 first. I was a striker. And then I moved back into midfield when guys got faster than me. And then I wore the number 8. So I just transitioned into liking the number 8 and wearing it as I played basketball. It wasn't available when I first started playing at Calderdale, but then when I got to Doncaster, I picked it back up, and I was always number 8, apart from when I played on the national team, which was Peter Scantlebury wore 8, and you can't take anything off that guy.
No,
no, you cannot. An absolute legend. So yeah, that's how I wore number 8.
Well, let's segue then into, obviously, in the 90s, you got a chance to play for England. So we're talking about an era where all the home countries individual, obviously GB, as we know it now, came along a good few years later. What was it like for you pulling on that jersey, playing for England?
Well, it was emotional because here I am, being picked to play for England by Laszlo Nemeth in a time where basketball was absolutely thriving. And I'm just, like I keep saying, a kid from Halifax, and I come in, I shoot the ball, work on it so hard. Every minute I play, I earn. And now I'm playing in the national team with Steve Bucknell, John Amici, Roger Huggins, and playing too. So, not only just being part of the team, coming in there and being depended on to make shots. Yeah. And the timing of Laszlo, who yet again is a really good friend and a great coach, being the coach and really valuing the outside threat. 24 caps I think I had. It shouldn't have happened. A kid from Halifax doing what he did, it just shouldn't have happened. And I'm really proud of that, but proud for the other people that put me in that position. So Curtis Xavier, who without him it wouldn't have happened. My mum and dad, who are my idols to this day. My coaches along the way, and Laszlo choosing me. So at age 20. To put on that England shirt, it was extra special.
Any standout memories, games from that time?
Yeah, one standout. We played Russia at home, and Russia, I think, were one of the more dominant teams within Europe at that point. And we played well. I did my usual come on and make a couple of threes, and the last play of the game, we were down 2 against Russia at home in Guildford. And the ball got swung around and I was in the corner, and then Amici ended up with it. And Amici shot it, and Delmy Herriman, who was the Swiss Army knife on the team, did everything. He tipped the ball in on the buzzer, right on the buzzer. And when you're playing European basketball, if you're away, you never get a call. You never get anything. Everything goes against you. Well, Delmy tips it in on the buzzer. We're going to overtime against the one of the European powerhouses of the game, Russia. And all of a sudden, the whole table, who are all English, stand up and say, no basket. And we lose by 2 and go into the locker room. But we were taking teams that close. Yeah. My first game at Crystal Palace against Hungary, was so good. I can still smell the swimming pool at Crystal Palace now. Next door.
Never goes away.
It doesn't. But what an iconic venue that is.
Yeah.
And just playing, playing in Newcastle Arena, every game for England, I loved. I love traveling. I love playing. Not many people can say that they've done that. So every game, really, Niall, was great.
It just give me an idea for a question there. Is this? Obviously, you played in a lot of good venues and some pretty awful ones. See, if at the top of your head, obviously, I suppose the arena in Manchester would probably be right out there at the top. But give me one of the worst venues you ever set foot in and played basketball on.
Oh, the worst venues. I would probably say when I played Division 3, maybe. I never liked going to Westminster. I'm going to upset a lot of people because even for Bradford, it was the changing rooms were like school kids had just been in there. The floor, you had to move like empty cans of pop off the side. It was just, I never liked going there. And I just never liked it. I didn't like that place. But I don't know. There was a few dodgy ones.
It's just, I remember. Go on. Sorry, I just remember the BBL back in those days when you were playing. You had these excellent venues because obviously Sharks were playing at the arena, Manchester playing in the arena, and then you get the little leisure centre venues.
Okay, so
that stark contrast, didn't you, back in those days between the great and not so?
So one of the most intimidating places to play, and it wasn't a bad venue, it was an absolutely rocking venue, and I've seen it on both sides of the coin, was Chester. If you go to Chester, the Northgate Arena, it was a hard floor. The fans were so close. It was so loud. They had a band going. So bearing in mind, I transferred to Manchester and was hated by Chester after that. So we had to play back in that building, and I was booed every time I caught the ball. And they beat us too. So their fans were absolutely frenzied, but they were a great group of fans to play when they were on your side, and that was kind of a tough place to play, but a really good place to play at home as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I used to remember because obviously as Tigers fans, you mentioned, that had a hard floor as well. 3 sides, and when it was full, it was a fantastic atmosphere because in terms of venues around the league, yeah, it was nowhere. It wasn't a great venue, but we loved it.
Yeah, I
It's one
love
of those
playing at
things.
Thames Valley too. Yeah.
Um, let's bring you back to the end of your career. I think when we were speaking off air, you played until you were 41. Is that right?
Yeah, roughly 41 or 42, I think it was. That
Um,
yeah, I
and what
played
was the
until.
final decision to say, right, that's it?
So the final decision was it looked like my son was going to go and play in the States. He made a bit of a promise at the beginning of his Bradford time when he was about 15 to say, I'm going to go play professional college basketball in the States, and that's what I want to do. And so we devised a plan on how to do that and what was going to get him there. And I echo still in my head the words of, like John Amici, just make a plan and do it. And he did that.
Mm.
So, he was inspirational in my thinking about, well, we're not just going to try do it. He's going to do that. That's what he's going to do. So that was Isley's plan. And the last season he played there, I didn't play because it was a part of letting him go, really. So him being on his own, being in a team where, I mean, what a season he had in that last season at Bradford. He was like leading minutes on the team. He had some great stats. He was like way up there in assists in the league, and he was 17 years old then in Division 1. So it was me kind of saying, go to practice on your own. Go and experience the team without your dad being there. Because as much as you are just a teammate when you're on court, you're still his dad. And if he was to have to make the next step to go to America, it was the time that I had to say, right, you're on your own now. And it was a good decision. Yeah, I used to go watch his games, but I wasn't as intertwined with how he played the game going forward. So
You
that
could
was
just
the
sit back and
reason.
enjoy
Really.
it, couldn't you? Really?
Yes. Yeah. That was the reason.
So your time comes to an end. Obviously, you work as teacher. I want to try and bring you forward now, because obviously a lot of people who won't have seen you play, they know you as a commentator these days. How did that
Yeah.
opportunity come to come back into basketball and be on the sidelines talking about the sport?
Well, it came during lockdown, and the opportunity was provided by a guy called Jamie Edwards, who took over Manchester Giants at the time. And because the games you weren't able to access them, you can't go to the arena. Everything had to be on YouTube.
Yeah.
So he just said to me, "Do you fancy commentating?" Which I did for free at the time, And I thought, yeah, why not? I get a chance to go to the game. I get a chance to study something that is brand new to me. And I get a chance to kind of start again in basketball. So, I get a chance to just go and develop at something. And that's how I got into it. So with Dave Lomax, who was the guy who did the games back then, I got a chance to be alongside him and just be the color commentator. But anyone who knows me knows that if I'm doing something, I'm all in. So I then started catching the bug and developing, and it went from there. But that's how I got my break, Niall.
Yeah. Well, confession time. I won't tell you who asked me this question, but I will tell you what I said. I'm happy to confess this. They said to me, what do you think of Jason then as a commentator? And I said, he wants to be the lead commentator, doesn't he? Because you had this habit early days. Because we all make mistakes. I look back at my early days; it's really bad. But you used to try and jump in and almost commentate over Dave sometimes. I will say that. But obviously, you found a passion for it, and this sort of gave you a passion back for basketball. You're doing the games. Of course, nowadays you do a lot of games with Kaz Bullock, and of course, we have to mention the fact is you have transitioned into being a play-by-play commentator. I've obviously worked with you at IMG, obviously Eurocup, what have you, and you've done obviously some BCL this season. What's that been like? Because obviously color commentating and lead play-by-play are two totally different jobs, aren't they?
They are, and you have to cover every angle if you lead. You know that. Being a colour comms, the thing I find about colour comms working with Kaz, I mean, shout out to Kaz first of all. I cannot see anyone who knows as much about, I would say definitely the women's game, that she knows a lot about. I think she's absolutely awesome at that. She's great to work with. I mean, Daniel Routledge is exceptional. We know that. So working with him is easy. So being the colour comms, I'm able to just concentrate on the game. But I also do a lot of research because you can tell. You can tell if a colour comms walks in there and just wings it, just thinks, well, I've played, so I can just talk. Well, okay, you can, but you also have to bring some substance to what is happening. So I think I do as much research when I'm colour as I am lead. However, when I'm lead, I tend to do more in terms of stats, in terms of a bit of background about maybe the cities that the basketball is played in, and Niall, being a commentator, you spend probably, if you do a game for 2 hours, you spend at least 8 hours in research, and that's what I do. So I know the players that are working, and I think, I don't know about yourself, but for me, it's a dream job. I'm borderline arrogant, for one, and also I like the sound of my own voice. If you haven't noticed, for two, I have no one interrupting me for three, so I get that for those 2 hours. So the ingredients are absolutely perfect. But like my basketball career, coming from Halifax and doing what I did, I'm going to do the same in commentary. I'm going to, do really well at this too. And why not?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Commentating is a lovely job. And I must admit, when I first was asked to do Surrey back when they started it, I wasn't that keen. I wasn't that interested. But you do it, and once you get through those nerves and being a rubbish commentator to start off with, but you suddenly find you enjoy it, you love it, and you want to do it. And did about 6 or 7 seasons with Surrey in the end. Absolutely loved it. And of course, it led on to Eurocup and other things. It's a great gig to do, but the one thing you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned it, is people sometimes don't realize just how much prep we put in before every game. Because like I said, people do wing it, and now the average layman or layman watching the game might not pick up on it, but we will.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
there
I
you go.
found it very interesting. I mean, the game, I would feel that I know the game very, very well through my playing experience, and now to convey that during a game, that's not the bit that's in my progression right now. My progression is the kind of times that you assert yourself on the mic, the times that you let it flow. Like Daniel Routledge, we spoke about, it's just like he's talking all the way through. It works very well. Another really good friend of mine, Ronald McIntosh, who does all the different sports. He gets all the eloquent words in there and still keeps up with the play and knows when to really start emphasizing who's got the ball at when, what times, and knows how to drum up, the excitement from the viewer. So there's so much that goes into that, and so much I watch. And when I'm watching sport now, if I'm watching Premier League, I'm more listening than I'm watching. You probably do the same.
Absolutely. You talk about Ronald. I'm not really into boxing at all. But when Ronald was doing Radio 5 coverage of boxing, I love listening to it because he's one of those
Yeah.
commentators that, when on radio, he paints that picture so well. It's like you almost watching it.
So playing with Ron as well, I know he's an educated, eloquent
Oh
gentleman.
yeah.
That is Ron McIntosh to a T, and he's a great human being. But there's a difference in being educated and eloquent, but there's to actually putting that across through a headset, so that the viewer thinks this guy's really good, and I think he's just so good. He's just really good, and one of my role models to watch.
It's a pleasure occasionally. Well, may not work with him, but get to work in the same building as him
Yeah.
occasionally. Listen, Jason, it's been absolutely fantastic to talk to you today. I'm going to finish off a couple of questions. We asked you about, obviously, venues, worst venues. What's been your favourite one to play on?
My favourite venue. This may surprise you, Niall, but bearing in mind McDonald's Open, Manchester Arena, Sheffield Arena. I'll give you. You can go first now. What do you think? What do you think the sort of place is that I would tell you?
No idea, because you've played, no offence, you played the 41, so you played a lot of venues.
Yeah,
Somewhere in
I
Europe,
have.
maybe.
So my favourite venue to ever play the game, and this goes back to how proud I am of growing up, is a place called the Ancillary Hall at Northbridge Leisure Centre. Now, this was a court that was a wooden floor. The backboards were as close to the wall as they can be. There was a horrible wall that if you caught yourself on, you'd lose your skin. And it was more or less a 4-on-4 court in terms of size. But it was where I was made. It was where Curtis taught me that I can achieve things that I didn't think I could achieve. It was where every summer I worked out. It was so special to me, was that basketball court. So my favourite court to ever play on, and I can still hear my sneakers squeaking on it, is the Ancillary Hall at Northbridge Leisure Centre. No, nothing will ever top that.
Has it succumbed to time, and is it no longer there?
It's now, and I was heartbroken. I went back to the Leisure Centre a few years ago, and I looked through the door, and it's now a dance studio, and there's no basketball rings in there. And I was quite emotional about it. I was like, "What have they done?
You need to win the lottery."
Here? Who do I punch about this? What's happening? Yeah. So that was my favourite court. Yeah.
Well, let's look at it this way. Perhaps they were so enamoured by you when you played there that they thought, this can't be a basketball court anymore because no one's ever going to top Jason Swaine.
You're very kind, but I very much doubt that as well.
Right, let's finish. You talked obviously about family. I just want to finish this last question. How important were your parents in your basketball journey?
My parents in my life journey are still the most important people ever. I mean, my dad is my greatest role model of all time by a country mile. My mum as well has been so supportive. And over the years, when I had Curtis barking down my throat and saying, do this, do that, and really being exceptionally harsh on me as a player, they were the ones that kept it rational. They backed him. They didn't back me. They never gave me an excuse. They taught me how to enjoy life. They taught me the morals. And my dad, who's he's had a lot to deal with over the last couple of years, with illnesses, has once again smashed that and come through that. And they're just amazing human beings. I have to mention also, in terms of family, Curtis Xavier, my first coach, who still to this day, I could pick up the phone and call if I needed him. But yeah, my mum and dad have been, and still are, the most important people in my life after my two kids.
Do you know what? I think we're going to end on that lovely note there, Jason. Listen, I want to really appreciate you for your time today. It's been great looking back on your journey through life and through basketball. And I wish you all the best. And hopefully one day we'll get to work on a commentary together. Who knows?
Yeah, can I mention just one thing, Niall? Just thank you to you. You do an excellent job on the mic, and also, your podcast is very, very well viewed, and I'll be sharing it. And just thank you for bringing some, not just me, other interviews to us. I think it's really great. So I appreciate you, Niall.
No, thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
That's all for this episode. If you enjoy what we're doing, please take a moment to share the podcast on your social media and help us grow it. And if you're a new listener, why not check out a previous episode? We've had some great guests on in the last couple of years. If you want to make sure you get the episodes as soon as they drop, please follow or subscribe to the pod via your favourite host. But for now, until the next time, my name's Niall Gray. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Eurostep Brit podcast, a Hoops and Hockey production.